Hey everybody, what's up? In today's video we're going to learn about arrays in Java. So first of all, we're going to learn how to declare and initialize an array. So here is my array that is called numbers, and as you see here, these are its elements. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. These are the elements of the array called numbers. And this array is of integer data type. This is why we are having the int, or let's say int keyword before the name of the array. So now we initialized our array. I would like to learn how to access and print elements of this array. Okay, so let me first of all comment a few lines here. So this line, these lines I don't want for the moment. Yeah, okay. So now when I run the code, I see only one output. Okay, now it's good. So here was my array. I would like to access and print elements of this array. When we want to print an element, we use this syntax system out println, and inside parentheses, if I want to print the first element of the numbers array, simply I write down the name of the array, which is numbers, and then here in brackets I would like to write the index of the element that I would like to be printed in the output. So I would like to print the first element, which is number 1, therefore I need to write down its index, and we need to know that indexing starts from 0. So this is 0, this is 1, this is 2, this is 3, and this is 4. So these are the indices. So the first element has the index 0, therefore number 1 is with the index 0. So I want to print the first number, which is number 1, so I put index 0 here. So when I run the code, I see 1 in the output. But what if I want to print number 4 here? If I want to print number 4, I simply write down its index, which is number 3. So I run the code. Now you see that number 4 is being printed in the output. So basically this is how we can access and print elements in Java for an array. Then we would like to learn how is it possible to iterate through an array using a for loop. Okay, so when I uncomment these 3 lines, we see that we are having a for loop, meaning that we are going to loop over our arrays. So we are having our iterating variable, which is called I. It's of integer data type and it starts from 0, and this loop is going to continue as long as I is less than the length of this array. Okay, so the length of this array is 5 because we are having 5 elements, and this I is going to continue as long as it is less than the size of the array, let's say 5. So it is going to start from 0, 1, 2, 3, and 4. So 5 repetition, 5 iterations, but starting from 0 and continues as long as it is 4, which is less than 5. In each iteration, it is going to this loop is going to increment the value of I by 1 unit, and in each iteration we simply are going to print the ith element of the numbers array. Okay, so let me illustrate it with an example. So the first iteration, I equals 0, meaning that we are going to have numbers 0, meaning that we would like to print the element with index 0 from the numbers array. So it is equal to number 1 because this is number 1 with index 0. In the next iteration, we are going to have numbers and with the index 1, index 2, index 3, etc. So when I run this code now, we see that all the elements of our array is being printed in the output. So this is another example that we have here. So another way to iterate over an array is iterating using enhanced for loops. So we can have the iterating variable num that is going to iterate through the numbers array, and in each iteration we are going to print num again. So when I run the code, we expect to see the same result, but this is another method. So you see that 1 to 5 is being printed in the output again, but this is another method, because here we were saying that the iterating variable, the starting point, ending point, and the incremental value in each iteration. But simply here we are using enhanced for loop, saying that okay, there is an iterating variable called num. It must iterate through the numbers array and print whatever that is there. So this is why we are having this one here. Now we want to find the maximum element in our array. So when I go up, we see that the maximum element is number 5. So we see that we can understand it by seeing it right now. But what if our array is so big that we cannot identify it manually? So this is why we do programming, because we want to make our life easier. So this is going to the programming language, the Java needs to figure it out. So here I initialize a variable that is called max, and I just assign one number to it, which is the number, the element with index 0 of the numbers array, which is number 1. I just randomly give it one number to initialize it to a number. Okay, then I have a for loop. Again, it is going to start from 1 as long as it is less than the length of the array. And why it is going to start from 1? Because already it is having the first element, which is number 1 here, assigned to the max. So we don't want to again check that, but we can again start from 0. It's not a problem. It's just to optimize the for loop and do one less iteration. Then in each iteration we check if the element that we are having it is larger than the value that is assigned to the max variable. If so, assign that number to the max. Okay, so let me illustrate it with an example. So first iteration, sorry. So in the first iteration, I equals 0. Okay, therefore numbers 0 is being investigated to be larger than max, and max is also number 0. So both of them are number 1, meaning that 1, is it larger than 1? No, it's not. So we are not going to do anything here. Okay, nothing happened in this iteration. We go up, we increment the value of I. So we go for the second iteration. Second iteration, I equals 1. So we are having numbers. So the element that has the index 1, what is that number? The element with index 1 is number 2. Okay, so number 2 is there. We are checking to see if 2 is larger than number 1. Why number 1? Because we are comparing it with the max variable, which is the first element of the array, which is number 1. So 2, is it larger than, greater than 1? Yes. Now that it's true, assign number 2. So the max variable now is 2. We updated the value of the max variable. Then we go for the third iteration, where I equals 3, for example. We are having numbers, sorry, I equals 2. We are searching for the element with index 2, which is this number, number 3. And we check to see if 3 is larger than 2. Is it true? Yes. Therefore max equals 3. So this is going to continue for 2 more times. So we are going to have the 4th iteration and the 5th iteration, and finally this iteration is going to help us to find the maximum value, which is number 5. So when I run the code now, we see that it says max equals 5. This is the result that is being printed here. So in this video, we learned how to declare and initialize an array in Java. We learned how to access and print elements of an array. We learned how to iterate through an array using a for loop. We learned how to iterate using enhanced for loop, and we learned how to find the max element in an array. Thanks for watching. Hello everyone and welcome to this video. In today's video we are going to learn how to calculate the sum of numbers in an array in Java. So here is my array called numbers. It's of integer data type, and its numbers, its elements are 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So there are 5 elements from 1 to 5. I would like to calculate their sum. Of course, we can do it manually. We can simply write down, for example, 1. For example, we can have int x equals 1 plus 2 plus 3 plus 4 plus 5 and do the calculation manually ourselves. But we do programming because we think that it can be beneficial and it can help us to improve the speed, because there might be like many elements there that we want to calculate their sum, like 1000 elements in an array, so it's not possible to do it manually. So in order to calculate their sum, first of all, we need to have a variable that we call sum, initialized to be 0. It's of integer data type. Then we are having a for loop that this for loop is going to iterate through the array called numbers. So this is my iterating variable num. This number is going to iterate through all the elements of numbers array. And in each iteration, that iterating variable is going to take one of the elements value and assign it to the variable sum. For example, so in the first iteration, we are going to have sum equals sum plus num, because sum plus equal num, this is exactly this equation here. Okay, sum equals sum plus num, and sum was originally initialized to be 0, so this is 0. Okay, so sum, new sum equals 0 plus, what is the num? The num is the iterating variable. In the first iteration, it is taking the first value, so it is number 1. Therefore, sum equals 1. Okay, so this is the first iteration. Then in the second iteration, we are going to have again sum equals sum plus num. Okay, the same formula. However, the values are now changing. So sum equals 1 plus 2. Why? This 1 is the value of sum that we calculated from the previous iteration. This number 2 is the iterating variable num that is taking the second value in the second iteration. So sum equals 3 now. Then we are going to have the third iteration where we see sum equals 3 plus 3, it will be 6. Then fourth iteration, we are going to have 6 plus 4, and then we are going to have 10 plus 5. Okay, so this is how it is going to work. This is the next iteration, fifth iteration. So this is basically how it's going to work. It is going to iterate through all the elements of this array, and in each iteration it is going to add that element into this sum variable. And when the iteration is finished, meaning that we went through all the elements of the array, then we are going to print the value of the sum variable. So when I run this code now, we should be able to see the sum as number 15. So this is exactly what we expected. So sum equals 15, exactly what we calculated, 10 plus 5. So finally in the fifth iteration, we are going to have number 15 out there. So basically this is how we can calculate the sum of an array, but some of the elements of an array. But if we increase the elements, for example, I have now elements from 1 to 10 and I run the code one more time, everything is correct, everything is done, and the sum is 55. So this is why programming is good, because you write down the program one time and it is going to calculate everything for every run that you do. So you don't need to calculate the sum now manually, because it's harder. If you wanted to do things like here manually, it would have been harder to add these numbers as the numbers are getting larger and larger. However, when we are changing the input, because the program is coded correctly, we can have the sum easily in the output by the program calculated. Thanks for watching. Hey everybody, what's up? Welcome to this video. In today's video, we're going to learn how to reverse an array in Java. First of all, I'm having my declaration and initialization of an array. This is an array called numbers. It's of integer data type, and these are the elements of the array. So as you see, I have elements from 1 to 10, and we see that 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, etc. until 10 are the elements of this array. And if I want to print this array, we can loop over this array simply and print it in the output. However, what I would like to do is to reverse this array, meaning that as you see in the output, I have the last element to be printed first, then the 9, 8, 7, 6, 5 until we reach number 1. So I would like to reverse this array. So in fact, I would like to print the reverse of this array. Instead of printing it simply from 1 to 10, I would like to print from 10 to 1. But how can we do it? We need to reverse the array. Now in this example, in order to reverse the array, I need to have a for loop. So I write down the for keyword. Here, first of all, I define my iterating variable, which is I in our case here. And it is equal to, we need to initialize it, it is equal to the length of the numbers array minus 1. You might be wondering why minus 1. So let's first start with the length of the numbers array. So the length we know because there are 10 elements. So we see that there are 10 elements there. So the length of the array is number 10. But we are reducing it by one value. Why? Because we are having the indexing starting from 0. So when I would like to deal with the last element, I need to write down its index, which is number 9. Why? Because indexing starts from 0, because the first element, which is number 1, has the index 0, the second element has index 1, the third element has index 2, etc. until we reach the last element with index 9. So whenever I would like to have the index of the last element in an array, I need to write down the length of that array minus 1. So this is my iterating variable now being initialized. Then I would like to continue this loop as long as my iterating variable I is greater than or equal to 0. And in each iteration, we are going to reduce the value of my iterating variable I by 1 unit. Okay, so basically we are going to have the iteration starting from I equals to 9, and we are going to continue as long as I is greater than or equal to 0, which is the index of the first element. And in each iteration, we are going to reduce its value by 1 unit. So in each iteration, for this for loop, we are going to execute this line. We are going to print the ith element, let's say the element with the ith index of the numbers array. So for example, in first iteration, let's say first iteration where I equals 9, we are going to have the print of numbers, and we are going to have the number 9 there, meaning that print the element with index 9 of the numbers array. So index 9, element with index 9 is number 10. So we're going to print number 10. Okay. Then we are having the second iteration, which is here. Okay. Now we reduced it in the iteration one. After each iteration, we are going to reduce the value of I because of this part of the code. So now we are having numbers and now 8. Okay, meaning that we are having the element of the numbers array that has the index 8, which is index 8 is for number 9. So we're printing number 9 now. So you see that in the first iteration we printed the last element, then we are printing now the 1 to last element, number 9, then 8, etc. until we reach number 1. So when I run this code, this is why actually we see number 10, number 9, 8, etc. until we reach number 1. So this iteration is going to continue as long as I is greater than or equal to 0. When it equals 0, it is going to print the element with the index 0, which is number 1. Then we reduce it one more time. So the I equals now -1. So -1, is it greater than or equal to 0? No, it's not going to pass this condition. Therefore, this for loop is finished and the program has nothing more to be executed. Therefore, the program is finished. Thanks for watching. Hello everyone and welcome to this video. In this video, we're going to learn how to initialize a two-dimensional array in Java and how to access its element. So first of all, I would like to initialize a two-dimensional matrix, or let's say two-dimensional array in Java. First of all, this is the name of my array. I call it matrix. It can be whatever. It can be my array. For example, if I write it down here, it will be my array. So this can be my name here and this can be my name here. So I call it my array here. And basically when I run this code, we see that the program is going to be executed. So there is no problem on that front. So this is your choice. You're going to choose the name of your array. I call it my array. So this is a two-dimensional array. How do I know that? Because I have two places here. So one bracket here and the other bracket is here. Okay, so it means that there is there are a number of rows and there are a number of columns. Okay, so the first one is for the rows, this one is for the columns. And this array, which is called my array, is of integer data type. Therefore, after that, we have the equal sign, square bracket, and within which we are going to initialize the numbers of this array. So we see that here, this is the first row, this is the second row, this is the first column, this is the second column, and this is the third column. Okay, so in the first row, I have number 1, 2, 3. In the second row, I have number 4, 5, 6. In the first column, I have 1, 4. Second column, 2, 5. Third column, 3 and 6. Okay, so this is the initialization of my two-dimensional array. Now I would like to learn how to access its elements. So first, let's say I would like to print this number 6, which is the name of the array, which is the one element of this array. So basically, in order to access this number 6, we need to address the compiler, give the address to the compiler, actually to give the compiler the address of number 6. Okay, sorry. So now I have the system out println, meaning that I would like to print it in the output. What is that is inside the parentheses. So I would like to go for the my array. So the compiler knows to check the my array. Go for the row number with index 1, let's say, and the column with index 2. Okay, so we learned that everything starts from number 0 indexing. So this is the first row with index 0. This is the second row with index 1. And this is the index 1 row. So we are talking about this row when I'm addressing this. Okay, so this is the address of the row. This is the second row with index 1. Now I would like to have the column with index 2. So this is the first column, index 0, second column, index 1, third column, index 2, as you see here. Okay, so here when we are having the third column with index 2 and the second row with index 1, we see that the intersection is number 6. So number 6 is being printed in the output when I run the code. So as I mentioned earlier, when we want to initialize an array, we see that here we are having two brackets, one for the row, one for the column. So this is the address of the row, this is the address of the column. Now what if I want to print number 5 in the output? So this number is in the second row, which is index 1, and again here it is going to be in the second column, which has the index 1 as well. So I modify this and I run the code here. You see that when I run the code, number 5 is being shown in the output. Basically, this is how we can initialize a two-dimensional array and also to access its elements. Thanks for watching. Hey everybody, what's up? In today's video, we are going to learn how to go through a two-dimensional array in Java using for loops. So here is my array called myArray. It's of integer data type and it has 2 dimensions. And we have 2 rows. This is the first row, this is the second row, and we are having 3 columns. First column, second column, and the third column. Okay. Now I would like to learn how I can go through this array. So first of all, when I run this code, I see that here we are having the print of this array 1, 2, 3 in the first row and 4, 5, 6 in the second row. Okay. In order to have the iteration through a two-dimensional array, we need a nested for loop. A nested for loop means that we are having an outer layer, outer loop, which is this one, and one inner loop. Okay, so the outer loop is good for going through the number of rows, and the inner loop is for the columns. Okay. So first of all, we are going to have the iterating variable I starting from 0. It is going to continue as long as it is less than the length of the array. And we are going to, in each iteration, increment the value of I by 1 unit. Then the inner loop is having the iterating variable j starting from 0. It is going to continue as long as the array, the length of the ith element of the array. So it is going to continue as long as it is less than the length of the ith of the myArray. Okay. Then we are going to increment the value of j in each iteration by 1 unit. So in the beginning, it may sound a bit abstract, but I'm going to illustrate it with an example. Then in this part, we are going to have the print of this array. So the element in the ith row and jth column is going to be printed in the output. For example, so when I look at the output here we see that in the first iteration, we are having I equals 0, j equals 0 as well. Okay, so in this case we are going to print the myArray 0 and 0. So the element that is inside the myArray with the index of the row of 0, which is the first row, and with the index of the column 0, which is the first column, is number 1. It's going to be printed here in the output. Okay. Then in the second iteration, we're going to have still I equals 0, but now j equals 1. You see, we are incrementing the value of j because we are inside this loop. We are inside the inner loop. Okay. And the outer loop is still the same because we're going to have the I to be 0 and j is going to take all its values 0, 1, and 2. Then we are going to increment the value of I one more time. So now we are having my array, and this time it is I 0 and j 1, meaning that we are dealing with the element with the row index 0, which is this one, and the column index 1, which is this number. So number 2 is being printed here in the output, and here it is number 1. Okay, so in the third iteration we are going to have still I equals 0, j equals 2, however. So in this case we are having myArray 0 and 2, meaning that we are talking about the first row still because the index is 0, and the column with index 2, which is this one. Okay, so this number is being printed in the output. But now j has reached its maximum number, and now the inner loop is finished, but we are still having the outer loop. Okay, so we go up, we increment the value of I. So in the fourth iteration, we are having I equals 1 this time, and j again equals 0. Okay, in this case we are having my array 1 and 0. Okay, meaning that we are talking about number 4, because the index 1 is the second row and the index 0 of the column is the first column, which is number 4. Okay, in the fifth iteration, we still have I equals 1, but this time j equals 1. And in the sixth iteration, we're going to have the I equals 1 and j equals 2, and then we're going to have number 6 in the output. Okay, so as you see here in this exercise, we learned how to go through a two-dimensional array using a nested for loop. And we learned about the nested loops because when we are talking about something inside another thing, so a loop inside another loop, so we are having this loop inside the first loop. Okay, and you see that here 1, 2, 3 they are being printed in the first row, and because we are having these numbers here, so all of them, I equals 0, j equals 0, 1, 2, and then because the inner loop is finished here and we had to go up and increment the value of I from 0 to 1, we are having this line. This line is going to help me to let the compiler knows to go to the next line. So it goes here, then it goes up and increment the value I from 0 to 1. And we see that here in the output, we are having 4, 5, and 6. Thanks for watching. Hello everybody, welcome to this video. In today's video, we're going to learn how to fill an array from user input in Java. So first of all, here I am trying to create a scanner object to read input from our users. Then here we are declaring and initializing an integer array of size 5 because I would like to have 5 inputs from our users. You can modify it if you want to have 10 elements. If you want to have 11 elements, you can simply modify that. And the name of my array is ARR. We can modify this as well. Then in order to read the inputs from our users, we need to have a for loop. So we have a loop to fill the array with values that are going to be inserted by our user. Okay, so we are having our iterating variable I starting from 0. It is going to continue as long as it is less than the length of our array, and we're going to increment the value of I at each iteration. Then we are having here the prompt the user to enter a value. We are showing this message to the user, enter value, and whatever the user is going to enter, it's going to be stored into the array at index I. So at the end, we're going to print the array in the output using a for loop. The for loop again starts from the iterating variable equals 0. It continues as long as the iterating variable is less than the length of the array, and in each iteration we are going to increment its value by 1 unit, and in each iteration we are going to print the array at index I. So let me illustrate it with an example. So when I run this code, you see here it says enter value. So this message is being shown. So now I enter number 1, it says enter value. Now number 1 in the first iteration, number 1 is stored at the first element of the array ARR. Okay, so now ARR equals now the first element is 1, so we're going to have the other elements there as well. So now it says enter value, I would say number 5, so the second element is number 5. Then it says enter value, I enter number 9 for example, so the third element is number 9. Then it says enter value, I enter number 3, so the fourth number is number 3. And finally, it says enter value. This is the last this is their last iteration because the size of the array is number 5. We initialize it here, and the I is going to continue as long as it is less than the length. So this is the I equals 0 with index 0, I with index 1, I index 2, 3, and now 4 is less than 5. Therefore, this is the last element. I put number 2. So I put number 2. Now I created my array called ARR with 5 elements. These are the elements, and the indexing starts from 0 as we know from before. So these are the indices of the elements. Okay, so in the first iteration, when I equals 0, we are talking about this number. So index is 0, and number 1 is assigned to as the first element, which has the index 0. With index 1, we are having number 5 as the second element. Number 9, however, has the index 2 as the third element. Okay, so this is how actually the iteration works. So we see that here it asks me to enter 5 values, and I entered them. Finally, it is printing the values that I entered. Basically, it is printing the elements in the ARR array. So you see that here we are in each iteration, we are printing array at index I, meaning that when I equals 0, we are printing number 1. Then in the next iteration, the element which is number 5, it is printing the I equals 1 as the index. So number 5 is being printed. Then I equals 2, number 9 is printed. I equals 3, number 3 is printed. And I equals 4, number 2 is being printed in the output. So in this video, we learned how to design a program that can ask users to enter their input, and we're going to store them and display them in the output. Thanks for watching. Hello everybody, welcome to this video. In today's video, we're going to learn how to work with array list, or we call it resizable arrays in Java. We're going to learn about how to create them and add elements. We're going to learn how to access one element and update elements, remove elements. We're going to learn how to iterate through array lists, how to check their size and check if an element exists or not. And we're going to learn to sort an array list. We're going to learn how to clear all the elements, and we're going to iterate through them one more time to make sure that we made the clearing very well. So first of all, when we go up here, I am creating an array list called names. Okay, it's of the string data type. Basically, in order to do that, we simply write down the array list keyword. The data type is a string, and this is the name. And on the right hand side, we are going to have the new array list. And this is how basically to create an array list in Java. Now I would like to add a few elements to it. In order to add a few elements, first of all, I write down the name of the array list. Then I use the add keyword, and in parentheses, in quotes, I write down the names that I would like to be added to this names array list. Okay, so now I'm adding Reza, then I'm adding Bob, and then I'm adding Charlie. And I'm just putting these stars there in order to make sure we're differentiating different parts of the code, to make sure that we're not mixing the different steps. So now I added a few elements to my array list. So first of all, I would suggest to have a for loop in order to print everything that exists in my names array list. So when I run the code now, you see that here these three names, Reza, Bob, and Charlie, they are being printed in the output. So we first of all created an empty array list called names. We added 3 elements, and now using a for loop, we were able to print the elements. How do we do that? We are creating an iterating variable called name from the string data type that is going to iterate through all the elements of the names array list. In each iteration, simply it is going to print that element, which are Reza, Bob, and Charlie. Okay, so this is the first phase. Now I would like to access a specific element. Okay, in order to access a specific element, I use system out println, and inside parentheses I write down the name of my array list, then the get function and the index of the elements that I would like to access. So the first element has always the index 0. So I would like to access the first element. I simply write down the index 0 for the get function for the names array list. This is going to print a result for me in the output. Okay, so this is what's going to happen. Then I have the updating of elements. So I would like to update the second element, which has the index 1, and I would like it to be David. Previously it was Bob. Now I would like it to be David. So I use the set function for the names array list, and then before comma I write down the name of the index of the element that I would like to be changed. Then after the comma I write down the name that I would like to be the element that is going to be instead of the current element. So the current element is Bob, the second element with index 1. Now I would like it to be David, and after that I simply print and access the element with index 1 to see if everything is done correctly or not, and I see yes, David is being printed in the output rather than Bob, which was the second element with index 1. So basically this is how we can access and update elements. Then I would like to remove an element from the array list. How do we do that? Simply I call the remove function for the names array list, and inside parentheses I write down the index of the element that I would like to be printed, that I would like to be removed from the array list. Then I use a for loop, let's say, to print my array list to make sure that the element at index 2, which was Charlie, is being removed. And I see the print in the output, and we see Reza and David only. So Charlie is being deleted and removed from the output using the remove function. And then I would like to check the size of my array. In order to check the size, I simply have the size function for the names array list, and I use system out println in order to print it in the output. So we see that the size is 2 because now currently we are having only 2 elements, Reza and David. So this is why we are having the size of 2. And I would like to check if a specific element exists in my array list or not. In order to check that, we simply use the contains function for the names array list, and inside parentheses I write down Alice, and I would like to see if Alice is there or not. So if it exists, it's going to return true. If it's not, it's going to return false. So it's false because Alice does not exist in my array list that contains Reza and David. However, if instead of Alice I write down Reza and I run the code one more time, we expect to see true. Yes, this is true, and true is being printed in the output because Reza indeed is one of the elements of my array list. Okay. Then what if I would like to sort the array list? In order to sort that, first of all, we need to import this library collections. Okay. After importing that library, I use the sort function from the collection library, and inside parentheses I write down the name of the array list that I want to be sorted. After doing the sort, when I go down and I have a for loop to print all the elements of the array one more time, this time I see that first David is being shown in the output, then Reza. Why? Because now sorting in ascending order puts David first and Reza as the second element, because we are having A, B, C, D first, and then we go down the alphabetic order to reach R, which is Reza. So R comes after D. This is why now David is the first element as well. And now I would like to remove all the elements of this array list. In order to do that, simply I call the clear function for the names array list. And one more time, I have a for loop to print the array list. And as we see, nothing is being printed in the output, meaning that all the elements have been removed. Therefore, we don't have any elements to be printed in the output. So in this video, we learned about everything that we need to know about array lists in Java. Thanks for watching.